Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to remix a Latin song into an Afro house track. So in this case I'm remixing a very popular song which is called Santa, which is produced by Russian. And I'm going to guide you through this project and show you how I've created all the elements. So let's dive right in. So for this track I've used multiple percussion layers, loops, sequences. So I've tried to add some unique elements to add a unique vibe, but still made sure it's an Afro house song. So at first let me show you the main percussion elements for this track. So I've added multiple loops from some sample packs and also from the Afro House Chemistry Producer Bundle. So if you're interested in some amazing samples, make sure to check it out. So at first I'm starting off with this sample, which is a simple tambourine loop. And then I'm adding a shaker loop, shaker 24 from the Chemistry Bundle. So at first I'm making sure those elements are very well balanced. Adding some elements to the left and to the right would really help you to improve your stereo image. Then we're adding another head loop on the offbeat. So this is also a sample. So it already starts to feel very, very groovy. Then we're adding another top loop, which already contains some percussions. So I'm basically adding all those layers to already define the texture for the drums. So after we add some main elements for the groove, it already sounds good. So this is a very easy trick how to create a very cool sounding drum loop very quickly. So I think in this case, it's even an amapiano loop. But it's stretched to the tempo of the project, so I think it's converted from 113 beats per minute to, in this case, 118 beats per minute. Then I'm chopping up another percussion loop and I'm using this small perk. Sounds really, really cool. And I'm also adding some delay. As you can see, I'm using this tape delay from Arturia. And I'm using just a simple preset. And then I'm adjusting the dry wet. So this is a very easy trick how to add another dimension to your drums. Then I'm adding an element which, for example, Music uses in almost all of their tracks. So they're using a sequence percussion layer from a synth, or they're using an ARP, and they're basically using this as a layer for their percussion. So in this case, I've used a Pluck and it's called Wave, and it's from the Afro House Producer Bundle, so the Chemistry Bundle, and it's this one. So right mouse button, send to selected channel. So I've opened up the preset in Serum. All the presets are, by the way, compatible for all DAWs. So you can use it in Ableton or Logic. And this one sounds like this. So it basically sounds like a tom, something like that. So it sounds very, very cool. And it sounds like this. And it's playing in D. I've also added some simple effects. So in this case, I'm adding some tape distortion to add that vintage effect to the synth. So be very creative when it comes to adding those layers. Then I'm adding this rotary effect, so kind of phasing effect. And then I'm adding a kickstart to make sure you add that ducking effect and this synth isn't colliding with the kick. So simple mixing trick. So let's layer it with the previously added drums. Already it sounds very, very cool, and I really like the texture and all the tiny details which are added to the drum loop. Then I'm adding this clave, so this small perk. So I've added a lot of those samples which you can use to the bonus folder. So it's in wood clave, and then I've used this one. So it sounds like this. And I played around with the velocity, so it sounds very organic and natural. And I think it's a great fit for a track like this. So right now, let's add one of the final elements for our drums, which is the kick drum. So I've used drum 5 in this case. But we're still missing some mid frequencies, as you can hear, because right now it doesn't contain a lot of groove. So there's one simple element which does the trick all the time, and it's just a simple tom. Very, very simple element, and I really like it. So then for the main part of the track, I'm adding some more drums. So the drums which I've showed you are the drums which are using the build up and the intro for the track. But in the main part of the track, you want to make sure you add some new elements. And you don't have to make it very difficult. So I'm, for example, adding this clap layer. which follows that typical Afrobeat rhythm or a Latin rhythm, and I think is a great fit for this track. I'm using percussion 14, white tom, so a very generic element which is used in a lot of Afro house tracks, but in this case I try to use it in a unique way. So I'm layering it with another percussion, very organic snare kind of sound. So as you can see, I'm just randomly assigning values to the volume of the drums, just to make it human, just to make sure it doesn't sound sequenced. You want to make it as organic as possible. And then we're adding head 2, which is very simple, and just an element which you can almost apply in all of your tracks. It works all the time. So let's have a listen. It's in the background. So you don't want to make sure this one is too loud. You want it to be in the background, maybe pan it to the left or to the right, so you give it an individual space within the mix. Could be very, very simple, but highly recommend adding elements like this. Okay, so that's it. So I showed you how I've created all the drums. So right now, let me show you how to create the melody layers. So at first, I'm starting off with a piano. In my latest tracks, I'm always using the piano as the foundation for a track because it fits the Afro house genre very, very good. You can also use maybe an electric piano, just try around. But still, I'm using the same elements in most of the tracks. So I'm using the Intimate Grand Piano from Labs. Highly recommend this one. It's for free, so make sure to get it, download it. And I'm using this one that sounds like this. I think it sounds very cool, very soft. You don't have to apply a lot of mixing. So I'm creating a piano chord progression. So this is the chord progression, simple. I've added more rhythm to simply use the slice tool like this and then slice up the chords. And then make sure you try around with a lot of rhythms. Make sure it fits the vocal and the drums. So I can't show you the vocal sample yet, but you also have to make sure the chord progression sounds very nice and goes very well together with the vocal. Okay, so then you want to make sure you add some low frequencies. So in this case, I'm adding a simple bass and I'm using the bass advance from the Chemistry producer bundle from the same preset pack. Sounds like this. Very cool, wide sounding, distorted bass. So highly recommended for using in your tracks. So let's have a listen while we layer it with all the elements. Adding some low frequencies, really cool. But still sounds too empty and I want to add an element which sounds very wide. So in this case, I would think about maybe adding another Medusa kind of element. So that square sound from Serum, which is very common. So that's why I'm using this one. Really cool preset. And I place the exact same note as the bass line. Adding a lot of room to the bass, adding some mid frequencies, which I think in this case are necessary. So when adding sounds, think about which frequencies do I need to add to make it sound full and make sure it sounds very warm. And in this case, I'm just adding low frequencies and some high frequencies. So I want to make sure we're adding some frequencies in between. So this is an element which I think sounds very cool and it makes sure it sounds full and rich. So the next element is adding a pluck sound. And I'm using another pluck from Serum and it's playing this melody. In this case, as you can see, it's very simple. It's just following the next available note within the scale. At which note do you need to start? So for example, in this case, I'm starting at D or D sharp. And it's basically the root note for the chord progression. So as you can see, the root note is D sharp. So if you don't know where to start, pick this one. And in most of the cases, if you start off at D sharp, it's very easy to create a melody. So in this case, I'm selecting the scale. So the scale is scale highlighting A sharp minor. So when you select the scale, you basically can create a melody within the white highlighted notes. So in this case, I'm following the next available note in the scale. So D, F, and then F sharp, G. Then I'm adding this G, and right here, I'm adding this F. So maybe you think, why pick this C in this case? It's the next note down from D. So don't make it too difficult. Just play around, try, pick some random spots within the white highlighted notes. And in most of the cases, you can create a really cool melody without knowing any musical theory or whatever. Just follow these simple steps and you can definitely create something really cool. So next up, we're adding some up and down lifters. Very, very simple, so those are necessary, but make sure they're in the background. Especially this FX8, which is my go-to FX on transitioning effect. It's very simple and it does the job all the time. So the final element which we have to add is the vocal. So I've used the AI stereo separation tool to separate the vocal. In this case, I'm not that satisfied. I think there are a lot of artifacts in this track, but overall, when adding it to all the drums and the melodies, it sounds fine. So let's have a listen. I think it's perfectly fine for a remix like this. Pluck is playing the exact same note, building up right now. We see vocal chop from the intro of the original track. Sounds really cool, the main part. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to check the Chemistry Producer Bundle. The link is in the description. If you want to check out some free samples, free Afro House samples, make sure to check my website. There are some free kits, free loops available for you guys. With those being said, I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you create an awesome Afro House remix and see you next week.